Hello, Ray Lee with Speedboat Magazine here with another episode of the Boats and Bros podcast. And we are here with my bro, Myrick Coil. And we're with Thomas Covington, formerly of P1 and now of IHRA. How are you, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on, guys. I've been watching your show for a little while now, so it's good to be on here with you.
No, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I actually got to travel with Thomas over when we got an award over to Monaco, and it was neat because he had been over in Europe a lot. Well, that was my first time, so he was able to help us out. He was actually our bus driver at one point.
Tour guide Tom.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. How did that come about?
Well, I don't know, but we ended up meeting at the airport, and I think we're in Nice, and then it was like he had a bus for us, and he ripped the mirrors off, and then we headed straight to Monaco. But it was neat, yeah, and it was neat to experience it with Thomas, being that he has been over in Europe, with motorcycle racing and stuff like that, more than me, because I had never been there in the first place. So it was neat.
Yeah,
it was a fun trip showing you guys around.
So let's talk about that, Thomas. I mean, you started motocross young, and that's kind of how you got your feet in the whole world of motorsports.
Yeah, exactly. It's been my whole life pretty much, from the time I was about 4 years old. I didn't know anything else, just racing motocross. So I had two older brothers, and my dad bought them bikes. He thought it'd be something cool for the family to do, spend some time together. And I was super young at the time, 3 or 4 years old. And eventually he had to get something for me to do while he was yelling at the other two to go faster. So he got me a little PW50, and he'd fill me up with gas, and I'd just ride it until it ran out. And while he worked with the other two. But then eventually the other two, they got interested in other things, and I just kind of stuck with it, and had a lot of success early on, winning amateur titles at Loretta Lynn's, and had sponsors that supported me all the way through, like Fox and stuff like that. So that kind of kept me going. But it was a cool childhood.
Where'd you grow up?
In Alabama. So Vernon, Alabama, middle of nowhere. Not much else to do except ride dirt bikes and fish. So
fish. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I bet there's some good fishing around there.
Yeah, definitely. That was my first experience with boating. Was a little John boat around some swampy ponds in the middle of nowhere in Alabama.
I'll tell you what, sometimes that's the best way to do it. Feel like you're king of the world, like the old plywood boat kind of story.
Yeah, exactly. It's usually leaking a little bit, and
yeah.
But no, it's fun.
So your dad put you on the bike, and you just kind of took to it naturally? Cool.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just rode it a ton. He ended up building us a track in the backyard, and my two older brothers, they were probably the best trainers I could have asked for. Every day, kicking me out of bed, telling me I need to go do motos. They pushed me pretty hard, because there's a pretty big age gap. So my two older brothers are 5 and 7 years older than me. So
oh wow.
Yeah, when you're 5 and there's a 10-year-old, you got somebody to try to chase, and I bet.
Yeah, so just a ton of time riding in the backyard, and then just chasing my brothers around pretty much.
So at your height, what level? At your best?
I guess I just started a little bit, growing up racing amateur. And then when I was about 13, we moved out to California. It's for my dad's job, but it worked really well for my racing career too, because that's where the whole industry is for motocross racing. And so I signed my first professional contract when I was 15 with Pro Circuit Kawasaki. And that's every kid's dream, going up racing motocross in America, right? Signed with Mitch Payton, Pro Circuit. I had a 2-year deal to go pro when I was 16 or 17. So I was just working towards that. I'd started working with a guy named Johnny O'Mara, who had trained some of the greatest riders in the world, Ricky Carmichael, James Stewart. He's currently training the Lawrence brothers, Jet and Hunter Lawrence. So, I was set up really well. And then an opportunity came up just before I was about to make my pro debut in the AMA National Series. The MXGP World Championship Kawasaki team, they needed a rider for the first few rounds. I think a guy had been injured or something like that. So Mitch was like, hey, why don't you go over there and do those first 3 races as like a warm-up for the nationals here in the US? Because in amateur racing, motocross, most of the races are only 6 or 7 laps, really quick, nothing like the 30 35 minute motos you do when you're pro. So he thought it would be a good test for me. So yeah, the first 3 rounds of the MXGP World Championship that year were Qatar, Thailand, and Brazil. So that was my first experience.
And you were 16 or 17, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I just turned 17. I just had my 17th birthday.
Wow, and that had to be fun.
Yeah, no, it was cool. So I didn't know what to expect. I flew over to Qatar, and Mitch built me the bike, shipped everything over. I was racing under the Kawasaki, the European Kawasaki factory team. And I went out in the first moto. I was on the starting gate, and the adjustment nut on the back of my clutch came completely unwound on the starting gate. So I had no clutch on the start. So I like revved it in neutral and then just jammed it into gear when the gate dropped. I was dead last. And then eventually the clutch just came apart internally completely. I didn't finish. But then the second race, I went out and I'm pretty sure I pulled the whole shot, or maybe I was second. And the guy in first went down, and I led majority of the race. So it's my first ever real professional race. And I led probably 25 minutes of the race until like the last couple laps. I got Jeffrey Hurlings and Arno Tonis, like previous world champions, passed me right at the end. So it was unreal. But it gave me some belief too, that like all the hard work I'd put in, that I was capable of winning these things. So, obviously that one went really well. Then I went to Thailand and ran in the top 10 again there. And then in Brazil, I think I had a top 5 finish. And at that point, the European Kawasaki team was like, man, would you be interested in staying for the whole world championship, running the full series? And at first I was like, no, I've got my deal back in the US. That's what I've been working for my whole life. Thank you, but no thanks. But they kept being persistent, and the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? This could be really cool, a really cool
experience. I've already got these 3 races under my belt and I'm doing all right.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just the traveling around the world was just unreal. Aside from the racing aspect of it, just life experience in general, being able to travel around the world, racing a dirt bike, see all these cool places.
Yeah.
It was just
I want to do it now, and I'm old.
Yeah. So
were you traveling with your whole family, like your dad and your brothers and your mom?
I think I'm pretty sure my dad came to 1 or 2 of those first 3. But it was just me and him. And then after that, after I decided to take him up on the deal, I flew over to Europe, and we had a little gap in the schedule. So I flew over to France. That's where the team was based, just by myself, 17. And I stayed for about 3 or 4 weeks testing, getting ready for the rest of the season. And then, my parents were in and out. My mom came and stayed a lot. My dad would pop in on the weekends at the races. But I pretty much just moved over by myself full time. So it was definitely a shock.
Yeah, I bet.
Were your brothers jealous of your success?
I don't think so. I mean, they had their own things going on that they were focused on, but I think they were more pumped than anything just to see their little brother at that level after us growing up. I'd worked for so long.
Yeah. Well, we spoke earlier, and like I said, I been doing a little bit of research on you to talk to you about this, and I've of course known you for years through the P1 connection, but we've kind of like hey, and kind of move on, and to see like when you Google your name, you pop up everywhere, and like pretty impressive. Of like,
Is it
name some
mostly
of
good?
yeah, like championships and stuff. Talk about some of the your big accolades in moto.
Yeah, so I ended up staying in MXGP for about 5 years, and during that time, I won a lot of motos, a lot of individual motos, but I never could tie up the entire championship, or even winning overall Grand Prix was tough for me. But I did win 4 Grand Prix. So there's 2 in Mexico, 1 in France, and 1 in Turkey. And then probably one highlight was in 2017. I raced for Team USA and Motocross of Nations. So that was really cool to represent the country. And then, yeah, I mean, other than that, just all the amateur titles. I was always really good at Loretta Lynn's, the big national championship every year. But yeah, I'd say the highlight, the Motocross of Nations team over to England. So the way that works is every country, they pick 3 of their best riders. One guy on a 250, 2 on a 450, and it's like the Olympics of motocross, basically. So that was a really neat experience.
Yeah. What do you think the secret to your success was? I mean, was there something specific that you were really good at?
I'm a real self-critical type of person, so I always just see the reasons that I wasn't like the greatest of all time, right? But I guess one of my best qualities, I was always really calculated. So with line selection and bike setup and things like that, I was always really picky with my bike setup. But if I had everything going right on that day, I felt like nobody in the world could beat me. So,
And when you're talking motocross, when you talk about bike setup, is it mostly suspension or selecting a gear, or what is it?
It's mostly suspension, all the fine tuning, but there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. Like you say, gearing, like which sprocket you're using, just the way that, like the geometry of the bike, the way it's set up, all that kind of stuff goes into it.
Wow. Every time I get on a dirt bike, I usually end up in a fence with all my freaking clothes ripped off. It's ugly. I've bought more buddies' plastics for their dirt bikes than I could have bought my own dirt bike as many times as I wrecked them.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Oh man,
a little bit cheaper to put a dirt bike back together than a boat, though.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I think that boat guys are so old. Because if we put teenagers in these things, they'd be destroyed in turn 1.
Sure. Hey, it'd be fun to watch, though.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes. Yeah, I mean.
And for those of you that don't know, Thomas's dad is Mitch Covington, bigwig in sports marketing for Monster Energy, and who is now our official sponsor of the podcast. So thank you, Monster Energy. But your moto career actually got him into Monster Energy.
Yeah, in a roundabout way, for sure. I was racing with some guys. We lived in Wisconsin for a couple years when I was growing up, and we were racing against. I was racing against who's one of my good friends now, CJ Greaves. And yeah, long story short, CJ's dad was one of the greatest offshore truck racers of all time. And my dad started helping him out with some of his sponsors, and then actually ended up starting a racing championship for the short course off-road trucks, which eventually Monster acquired that racing championship. So yeah, in a roundabout way, I'll take credit for
You're welcome. You're welcome, Dad.
I made you.
Yeah. I don't think I did anything for my dad. Just gave him bills. Sorry I wrecked the car. Sorry I wrecked the truck.
No,
Yeah.
but you when we ran into each other in Lake Havasu last October, you turned me on to a podcast that your dad was on, the Gypsy Tales podcast, and it's a 3-hour plus podcast, and I listened to it the entire way home driving to Havasu. And your dad is pretty impressive dude, and just a lot of the things. What struck me is, like you said, you're from Alabama, and you guys are, and so he's got the Alabama accent. You do not.
Yeah, when he said Alabama, I was like, oh, that whole. Yeah,
Good.
just don't have an Alabama accent. Is what I think of it.
Is that an international accent?
Yeah,
or kind of a hybrid?
It's definitely confused. Spent a lot of time. I mean, I lived pretty much full time in Alabama till I was about 13, but since then, yeah, spent a lot of time in England with my wife being from there, and then and then working for P1 with Ozum and their family on Zoom every day, talking. It rubs off on you after a while.
Yeah, I had a buddy that worked with me, and he was from New Zealand, and I could tell when I was with him that I talked different. It's weird. It's like and it was like 2 years of basically hotel rooms together, every day, all day, and you'd start saying things. I don't know. He said like throwing a wrench in the spanner, stuff like that. And you're like, what's that mean? He's like, like really messing things up. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, anyway,
there's some things my wife says, and I'm just like, I don't know if she makes them up or. There's definitely a language barrier.
Yeah, it's like talking to Steve Curtis every once in a while. We were on the Mercury Racing experience at the deal in Miami last weekend. He was sitting there, and we had a little tent, and he'd come over and talk, and he's just like listening to that the different. Well, they actually speak English the proper way compared to us, but
right.
Yeah, it's funny listening to him.
So how did ultimately your motorcycle career end?
Well, in 2019, I took a deal to come back to the U.S. and race Supercross and AMA Nationals with the same manufacturer I was riding for in Europe with Husqvarna. It was great. It was a great experience, but things didn't go too well. I had a lot of injuries, and I ended up going back to MXGP in 2020 for my final year. The race was during COVID, and the series was really weird. We'd go to Latvia or somewhere, and we'd do 3 races all in a row, and we were just getting tested for COVID twice a day, and it was insane. But during that time, I just got a little bit burnt out, and kind of looking to what I was going to do next. Whether I was going to tough it out and keep pushing through to hopefully get back on a factory team after the rough year I had here in the US, or move on to something else. But around that same time, I'd gotten to know Ozum Ranganwala through my wife. My wife had been doing the TV presenting for their European jet ski racing series called Jet Cross. And she had worked for him for 5 or 6 years at that point. So Ozum started coming to some of my races that year and got to be pretty good friends with him. And towards the end of that season, I hit him up, and I'm just like, hey, if I did decide to hang up the boots, would you have a spot for me to help you with your US events or in Europe or anything like that? Because I felt like it would be a good fit. I'd always seen myself going into the business side of racing at some point, and I felt like that would be a really good opportunity for me. So I went to see Ozum and his dad at the office in London, and yeah, he said, hey, if you want to move back to the US, I could really use some help with the events in Florida and have some boots on the ground there, because at that time he was based in London. So I took him up on it, and yeah, he was the Ranganwalas were really good to me. Ozum kind of took me under his wing, showed me every aspect of the business, and definitely learned a lot from him.
And he was in charge of P1 at the time, or was it the jet ski part of things?
Yeah, so Ozum was running P1 as a whole. So the jet ski racing globally, because they had some stuff going on in Asia, still in Europe at that time, the UK, and in the US was probably their main jet ski racing series. And then they were starting to take on these offshore powerboat events. So yeah, Ozem was overseeing it all. His dad obviously founded the company long before that in the early 2000s, but yeah, Ozem picked it back up and he was heading everything up.
Yeah. I've Googled his dad. He's an interesting guy, that's for sure. After sitting in meetings with him and listen to him talk and things like that, I was always wanted to go back and see what he was all about. And man, he's had quite the career and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's a very charitable organization, the whole family. I think it's been knighted by the King of England recently for their charitable efforts. And
wow, that's cool.
Yeah, they're a really cool family, and they love boat racing.
So what year was that? Like 2020?
What was this?
When you retired and went to work for P1?
Yep. So right at the end of 2020, I finished up the season, and then in about October, I started working for P1. So.
And how old were you when you retired from Moto?
I'm pretty sure I was 24 or 25 years old at that time. So yeah, pretty young to retire. But for motocross, it's a little bit early, but I mean, if you're 30 years old still racing professional motocross, that's a long career. So
yeah, you're beat up.
Yeah,
for sure. So I got out while I was still walking and in one piece.
Smart.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I mean, back in the day, I'm much older than you, but I always think of like Crusty Demons of Dirt and all those videos back in the day of them guys just doing dumb shit. And I was like, I wonder, like them guys probably don't walk anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I was pretty lucky for the most part. Not any big injuries. My knees were probably the worst thing. I had probably, I think, 6 knee surgeries by the time I was done.
Both
no
of them?
ACLs left.
Yikes.
I'll probably need a knee replacement at some point, but for now they're doing good.
Well, at least you got a good excuse.
Right.
I'm just going to be wore out just from being wore out. No motocross. Cool motocross stories.
Yeah. So what was your role when you joined P1? What were your responsibilities?
When I first started was mostly a business development role. So trying to bring in new sponsors from the relationships that I'd built, my whole life in motocross. Even though it's 2 different sports, it's still motorsports and a lot of the same people, same industries in general. So I felt like boat racing was, so cool. I mean, the first time I ever saw a boat race was, I'm pretty sure it was Sarasota in 2019. I went with my wife to check it out, and yeah, straight away walking down the street party and everything like that, and then watching the races. I'd never even heard of it before then, but I couldn't believe that nobody had heard of it, because then I felt like when I started working for P1 that if we got the right people involved, that this sport could really blow up. And I still feel that way. It's a huge opportunity, because in all forms of sports, in cars, you got Formula One or NASCAR, which is the top. On motorcycles, you got MotoGP or Supercross, but there's really not a premier level racing championship for, powerboat racing. So I felt like there was a good opportunity for that, to build something that people have never really seen.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited with what is your role with IHRA now?
With IHRA, I'll say I'm mostly focused on the PWC, the jet ski racing, me alongside Dustin Farthing. But also still working along those same lines of business development across IHRA as a whole. So not only the offshore powerboat racing, PWC, but also stock car racing, pro pulling, all that stuff, working with Leah Martin there.
You have to learn a lot of things that you probably didn't know anything about. I mean, did you know anything about pulling or stock car racing?
No idea. Still
Yeah.
learning. Still
Still learning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, after this year, going to a few of the events, I think I'll be able to wrap my head around it a bit better. But it's definitely cool what Daryl Cuddle's doing with IHRA. It's just really cool to see someone investing in motorsports like that, because it's what we all love to do, right? And we need people like that supporting it to go racing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with the P1 stuff, you were doing the aquacross stuff over there, that was running in conjunction with the offshore boats. So it's kind of like a nice transition for you going into the pro watercraft series at IHRA.
Yeah, I mean, I was never directly involved in, running the aquacross championship. A lot of that was Michelle Petra or Lisa Barsby at the beginning. But, as the first couple of years was strictly business development, but as time went on, that role kind of transitioned into taking on more and more, whether I wanted to or not. But it was a really good, learning experience for me, because I got to see every aspect of the business and learn how each area worked. But P1 was a really small team, me, Michelle Petra, Ozem, Chuck Spicer, Sean Hagen, a few others, but we all did a little bit of everything. So it was a great learning experience for me. And then, then with IHRA coming in, it was, a great opportunity. It's like a clean slate to kind of restructure things and do things how I thought.
And for people that don't know, IHRA bought P1, or is that what happened?
Yeah, exactly. IHRA acquired P1 probably 5 or 6 months ago. So with that, I went with that transition and started working together with Leah Martin on that.
Yeah, because at that time, Ozem had kind of stepped away and brought his family overseas and went England, and then he kind of let you kind of run the show in his absence, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, I started taking on more and more with the business because the first couple of years I was bringing in a lot of people, a lot of sponsors that I developed relationships with over the years, whether it was through my own racing or friends of my dad. So, and I'd seen so many different types of racing, over the whole world. When I was living in Europe, I was racing most weekends, but when I wasn't racing, I'd be at a World Superbike race or, MotoGP or F1 or something like that. So I'd seen a lot of different types of racing, and I knew what the series should look like and how it should be run. So yeah, I kind of saw the gaps or places that needed to be improved. And Ozem was good enough to kind of let me take those on. So by the end, yeah, Ozem, he relocated to Dubai the last year, probably the end of 2024. He started moving over there. And at that time, I started filling his shoes a little bit with just the day-to-day operations of P1. So it was good. I mean, it was great, but it was a heavy lift. It was a lot of work.
Especially being a dad of two now also.
Yeah, it all kind of happened the same time. Because we've got a 3-year-old now and a 1-year-old. So it was wide open, not much sleep happening, but it was all good. But at the same time, that's why it was a little bit of a relief to have Leah and IHRA come in, because she's built out the team, in a way that we can all focus on what we're good at. And yeah, I actually get a couple hours of sleep now.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wanted to thank Monster Energy for sponsoring the podcast, the Boats and Bros podcast, and really excited about it. How about you, Myrick?
I'm excited as hell. Monster Energy. I just had 2 of them, man. I'm all jacked up. This stuff's awesome. Yeah. I ain't gonna be able to sleep tonight because this is 9 o'clock at night after our Boats and Bros. Missy's rolling her eyes and shaking her head at me. Anyway, yeah, big being with Monster Energy is an awesome deal. been fortunate enough to be sponsored by them with boat racing for the last 2 or 3 years, and now to have them on the Boats and Bros podcast. You know, I really do love that sugar-free stuff, and you know, when we're working late nights and when we're doing all this other stuff, it's awesome to be part of the Monster Energy family and drink their product. So go Monster Energy.
Go. Cheers. Thanks, y'all.
Really got to walk through here when I'm doing that.
How is your wife with all the traveling that you do?
Yeah, she's good. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's easy with the two the two young girls. I mean, it's chaos all the time, but yeah, but it's awesome too having them that young, and luckily we're able to travel together to a lot of places that we go, and especially the boat races. It's such like a family friendly atmosphere, and my wife Amy, she knows most of the people in the pits, so it's all like family for her. So yeah, we're actually looking forward to this season, traveling around and taking them to all the races. And as the girls get older, it'll be a little easier to travel, take them along.
It's one thing I took away from Willie Cabiza one time. He's like, I was like, what do you think of boat racing? And he's like, it's awesome. And I'm like, so, because I knew he had raced rally trucks. And I say to him, well, what's better about it? He goes, well, a hotel, first off. Because we're sleeping in tents out in the desert, or whatever. And he goes, the fact that my wife and kids can come and they got a pool or a beach to go play on, while I'm doing the racing thing. And then we can, congregate later in the day and have a nice dinner and sleep in a nice hotel. He goes, that there was none of that. And, the Baja 1000 or what, whatever he was doing. But I was like taking that perspective. And then you go and think about, drag racing, and I'm not dissing drag racing, but I've been at a lot of drag strips to where it's 110 degrees and asphalt. And, it's not like hanging out on the beach with, I don't know, kids building sandcastles or girls in bikinis, whatever, it's a beach is a nice place. And I've had sponsors in the past where like, man, this is cool, because they've either been sponsoring something that, maybe a wife or something wasn't so excited about going to, but then you tell them, hey, we're going here to hang out on the beach and watch some boat races. People are pretty jacked about that. So,
yeah, definitely. I think that's why it's so enticing, like you said, for sponsors coming into the sport, because it's something different, something they've never seen before, something they can bring their customers to. Like Monster, for example, they've been sponsoring NASCAR, Supercross, these sports for years and years. Their clients, they've all been to Daytona, they've all been to these places. This is something new, a new experience that they can take their people to.
Yeah. And even, for example, like I've been on, like Tyler, I'll have a support boat there, and, it'll be something, like some of the motocross guys will be getting on or something. They're like, wow, this is cool. We're in this big ass boat, going out on the ocean or a lake or wherever we were at. I think Malcolm Stewart was on the boat and a couple of the other monster guys. But anyway, it was neat to see other people's perspective, basically. Fortunate to be in it long enough that the news wore off for me a long time ago, but to watch other people come in and you see they're thinking about, boat racing and either how they're going to get into it or why they like it. And I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think again, that's why IHRA's got such a good opportunity, is to really shape and mold the fan experience for people come to the events. Cause I think that's a piece that's really been missing in the sport for a long time, is when you actually come to the event, what do you do? How do you watch? How do you figure out what's going on out on the water? All that stuff is what people struggle with. And I was able to see that firsthand, kind of coming in from the outside. I could tell how cool it was, and seeing these boats in person in the pits and all that stuff. But once they got on the water, it's kind of hard to make that connection and see where the race is actually at and what's happening. So we're doing a few things this year to help with that, with the live stream, having some screens a few different places in the pits. Like in St. Pete, you'll see a jumbo screen down the pier.
Nice.
A lot of good stuff is in the works.
And I've also heard of, maybe course changes. It might be if you race somewhere that you've raced in the past, the course might be closer or further along the beach, trying to get more people involved rather than heading out. And it's one of the things that, all the old school guys are like, oh yeah, we used to race out to Lighthouse Point and blah, blah, blah. And then we were out of sight for a half an hour. You go, man, I see why they changed that. Because they'll talk about, you'll hear guys talk about it like Key West. We used to go out there to where we went out of sight and then we took a left and it was like 45 minutes, one big lap. And you're like, yeah, but could anybody watch you? And they're like, no, but we were Vikings,
That's real offshore.
Yeah, that's
Right,
real
yeah.
offshore. Because we were out there in no man's land.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Bob talking about his stories, and
With
you're
a
like,
map and a compass.
yeah, I'm mopping a compass through kelp fields, and getting, and I mean, I get it, but
Yeah.
when you have a sponsor that's standing there on the beach, you don't want them going, where'd they go?
What do we do now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's one thing. That's cool, but having the race course, I think to drive the sport forward, yeah, people got to be able to watch you. So,
Yeah. I always thought that and I know they're redoing it or they've started redoing it, but the stadium in Miami, I forget what they
Marine
call it. It's where
Stadium.
the Marine Stadium. And man, talk about cool back in the day. I know it wouldn't fit offshore boats like it was, is easy, but to have, the F1s and all that and have, shaded area to where the people could sit in the stadium seating like that. It's one thing I always think about Corpus Christi. I remember racing there in the past, and even Chicago was very similar to where they have that big, it looks like stadium seating, but it's basically a giant wave break right along the water there for when the water's really rough. But for everybody to sit down there and, feel like they've got, seating for it all is pretty cool too.
yeah, and I think we're gonna try to create some of that at some places. If if the geography of the venue allows.
Yeah,
That's one
the
thing.
biggest thing.
Yeah. So each venue is so different. We're always trying to make it work and see what's going to be best for the fans.
Well, that's why I thought Leah did such a good job on getting you to come over to the IHRA team, is because you've been there, you've seen like the pinnacle of how events are properly done, being overseas and stateside with just the top with motocross and stuff like that, and so you can implement that, what you've seen and done and experienced, into the IHRA experience, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I've had just enough experience going to all these offshore boat races to know the challenges and why a lot of those things don't work at offshore races. But the team at IHRA, with Justin Martin doing safety and Nick Smith previously with OPA, I've got to give it up to Leah. She's put together a really strong team, and with such a political sport with all the different organizations, she's been able to draw in people from all different sides who have been at each other's throats over the last few years. So it's really cool to see. And like you said, with the course changes, a lot of the things that we tried to do at P1, like in St. Pete, for example, we always tried to make the course more fan friendly or people easier to watch. And we were never really able to get there. They were always like, nope, straight out into the bay is the only way it's going to work. But this year I got to see, Nick Smith, Justin Martin, Leah, like the whole, and Tommy, work together, work with the Coast Guard, with the water police in St. Pete to make the course more fan friendly, but still allow access for the marinas around and all the problems that we had in the past. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah. There's got to be a lot of problems that people don't even foresee. I've seen it just by being there, whether, it's wildlife or, things like that. It's amazing how much it takes to, race on somebody else's waters, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you just look at St. Pete, for example, there's large marinas on both sides of the pier. You've got the airport there, which really restricts the airspace for, our drones, safety helicopters, marine observation helicopter. There's so many different things going on out there at the end of the pier. So it's tough. It's, sometimes I wish it was as easy as owning a racetrack somewhere in the middle of cornfields, where we can just go and do what we want. But the entire event, even on land, we're working with a lot of times city owned or public property. So it creates a lot of different challenges.
Yeah. Then it only takes a few people that are pissed, like, hey, they killed the grass, or, when they drove their semi on it, and you're like, oh, great. Well, there goes all the profit because we had to reseed this 10-acre field.
Yeah, exactly. But it's cool though. It's fun. It's always you're always learning. And but that, with IHRA, we've got a few of the P1 venues that are coming back, which I'm able to kind of guide the team on quite a bit. But then we've got other venues, which, Nick Smith's going to have all the, history with, like St. Clair, Michigan, for example. And yeah, I think it's going to be a fun year. And I think it's going to throw a lot of different things at the racers too. We've got Cocoa Beach, which is a true offshore race, really rough. And then
your favorite, Myrick.
Yeah.
Yeah. That ref shit.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
You should like the schedule though. There's a lot of inshore stuff.
Yeah, no, I do. I like the schedule. And I'm always the guy that I've always said we need a winter series. So I obviously it's not going to happen, anytime soon, but I like the whole, October, November, December, January, February, but everybody's like, Florida's already full with snowbirds at that point. we don't need any more. We want to draw them down when, people aren't there as much, but I mean, other than the fact that our new boat I still don't have it. I'm excited about having a March race, and today I think we're like 4 weeks away. So, but I am excited about going racing, and the actual races being spread out a little bit. One a month basically. I like that too, because when you're doing it as basically a second job for me, you can't be gone every week, or the bosses start to get pissed.
Yeah, I bet.
So what is the latest on that, Myrick? Are you still anticipating the new boat to arrive in time for?
Yeah. I mean, we had a meeting on Saturday with Tyler, and it is like, work as hard as you can, but don't kill yourself, because we still have the other boat, and we're going to make our contractual agreement and be at these events, but we don't want to rush through, this boat, and, because we have done them in, I don't know, like a Super Cat, we've done one in 30 days, but Jake's literally, and Jake and Greg are, excited to get working on it, and there's shelves of parts waiting and stuff like that. But there's just some things you can't rush through, because it's funny, once you get into the season, it's not like you rip the boat back apart to fix those things that you need to fix because the season started. So, it's like, do it right the first time, and then you don't have to tear it back apart, basically. So I don't foresee us making St. Pete with the new boat, but I do see it shortly after. What is in the second race? New Orleans, then Cocoa, and then Lake Race. Yeah. So
is that almost a relief for you?
No, because still the same amount of work. It's not like the work goes away. It's
right.
It's like, you're going to spend 500 hours on this or whatever. It's like, my biggest thing is I just want to win all the time. So at that point, what we've learned from the boat we have now, and then what we've put into the new boat, yeah, pretty cool. And then there's going to be another boat. I don't know if it's released yet. So, but there'll be 2 boats we're racing this year, and people can try to figure that out. But I'm told that the second boat is I think it's maybe Lake Race is the first race, or maybe Cocoa Beach. I think it might be Cocoa, but Tyler didn't tell me about that. He just told me after he done what he did. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
But I'm one of those guys where with like all this political and social media crap, I don't like to even know, like somebody's bitching about safety or somebody bitching about this, and they're like, so what do you think about that? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I like to just, not have an opinion about it. That way I don't have to talk about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So
That's the best way sometimes.
yeah. To where people go, what do you think? I go, well, I'm just the driver. It doesn't matter what I think anyway. I just turn the wheel.
That's what Thomas said when he was driving the bus for you.
Yeah. He goes,
Just the driver.
We don't need that mirror anymore anyway.
Yeah.
We're just these roads are small.
The bus was big.
It was, I don't know, it was Mercedes something or something like that. But I think it was a stick shift even. Maybe.
Yeah. Manual, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, end up off the edge of the cliff in Monaco. So
yeah.
Wow.
I tell you what, we stopped.
That's sketchy.
That was one of the biggest things about being there that I didn't realize is the terrain. I mean, you're basically on the side of a mountain, and the more that I like looked at the map, I was like, well, the Alps are right there, like an hour or 2 hours away, so it made sense. But when I thought of, I don't know what I thought. When you're in the States and you think about the ocean, you think about, it's usually flat and the beach leads up to it. And when you're on the Mediterranean, it's like they're built on a cliff in the rock, and like he said, there's cliffs. And he did stop, and he didn't get Missy too sick. She gets car sick. But
that's good.
We had done that flight. I tell you what, that flight was a long one, but
yeah, for sure.
On the way back, Tyler, or on the way there, Tyler was right behind me, and I just kicked back and threw my seat. He's like, "What a dick."
So Thomas, our last guest, we had your partner Dustin Farthing on, and what a guy, man! I met him for the first time when I was with you in Lake Havasu last October, and man, I love that dude. His energy is just infectious, isn't it?
Yeah, talk about a guy sponsored by Monster Energy for 18 years and not even needing a Monster Energy. I was like, this guy is just he's in top gear all the time.
Yeah, Dustin's awesome. I mean, I've always known who Dustin is just because he was involved in motocross and supercross to some extent with his dealerships, and but I never got to know him until the last few years with Aquacross. And like I said, I wasn't directly involved in managing the series, but I was kind of watching from the outside in. I went to all the events, and that's why after IHRA acquired P1, and Leo was like, "Hey, why don't we start a personal watercraft racing series?" And Dustin was the first phone call to try to put this thing together, because I could see how it could be better just looking at it from the outside. And Dustin had a lot of good ideas. Obviously, he's been in the sport for forever, so I couldn't think of anybody better to help me take that on. And that's one thing I'm really excited about for this season. It's just all the excitement that's building around the personal watercraft series. We've got, I think right now we're over 120 entries for the first round in St. Pete. So I think we're going to have to cap it here pretty soon because we don't have enough space to park everybody, which is a good problem to have. But it's just really cool to see everybody in that industry kind of uniting and come to support the championship.
Yeah,
it's something that's been needed for a long time in that world, because the IGSBA had the World Finals, and it was such a big event in the 90s and early 2000s. And just living in Southern California for a little while, always heard people talk about it, how great the event was and how cool that sport was in the 90s. So we're looking forward to bringing it back to its former glory, maybe better. And it's The personal watercraft industry is, pretty close in a lot of ways to the motocross industry. A lot of the same manufacturers, a lot of the same people involved. So I can relate to it pretty well, even though I was never really a watercraft guy myself. Um, I've always kind of followed the sport to some extent, and I think we can make it something really cool, something like Supercross on the water, basically.
Yeah, I mean, where we're from, and obviously where a lot of these people from, is they might have a ski that's so similar to the ones that they're racing in these endurance races that literally, I mean, to be honest, it's like I bet you there's as many jet skis a year built as dirt bikes because all these lake houses, at least around here, this is how so many of these power sports dealerships survive around here is jet skis over dirt bikes. To be honest, so for somebody to get interested in it and just even know, hey, they're running a Yamaha or a Kawasaki or a Sea-Doo or whatever they race. Yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah.
I remember back in the day, and when I was talking to Dustin, it was like he was talking about all of his old bikes and stuff like that. And I had like a 95 Polaris or something like that. And he was talking about, what he had raced. And when I asked him, I was like, so did you keep any of those old? He's like, every one of them. He's like, I got like 80 of them. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That has to be awesome to talk about. I told him, I was like, yeah, the thing about boats is we have to sell them to buy another one. So it's different than a ski, I guess, or a bike that he calls it. Skis were the stand-up bikes, or boats. Boats were the jet skis. Boats are the jet skis, or boats are trying to get it right after talking to him for that hour. Boats are the sit-downs, and skis are the stand-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the entry point to go race a jet ski is a little easier to digest than going boat racing, offshore boat racing anyway.
Yeah.
Well, like we were talking with Dustin when I saw you in Havasu for the World Finals. Their pits are just massive, right? I mean, they equal yours, Myrick, your and Tyler's, but they're obviously you guys have 40, 50-foot boats, and they have the little jet skis plugging it in, but they fill it all up. It was quite the show.
Yeah. I always think it's cool where they have like a four-wheeler pull it down, and they have, like it's a little it looks like a makeshift trailer. Obviously it's a nice trailer, but it's nothing that's roadworthy. It's something that's more like dirt worthy so that they can go just back it right in. And, I always thought that was cool with the F1 boats too. When they would bring them, like with Lake Race, and Tim Seabold had his set up there to where, it's basically like a four-wheeler, an ATV pulling the race boat around, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, and to that point, I just got back from the F1 race, the first F1 race in your neck of the woods, Thomas, in Bradenton, and what a great event that was. I mean, just the organization and everything, and the activation of everything IHRA there, and the vibe in the pits. All the racers were stoked to have IHRA supporting that whole series now. I had a bunch of people come up to me and tell me personally that their entire team is so thankful that there's now prize money and travel money and just stuff that they'd never been before. And so these guys are stoked about it. And to your point earlier, just plug in all the right people into these different disciplines, like Dustin Farthing running pro watercraft, Tim Seabold, Myrick, you and I talked about that earlier. Who else would be that? Yeah, who else would be running F1 other than a Seabold, right?
Yeah.
And now Tony Scarlatta, who is like a god in drag boat, is now heading up the series for drag boat. So it's just all the pieces are falling into place very well. And Thomas, you overseeing a lot of the stuff. It's very cool. It's just very exciting.
Yeah, it's cool. And I was checking out the live stream and everything from the F1 race over the weekend, and I had tons of messages from different people tuning in, watching it, checking everything out. And I think that goes to prove kind of the model that IHRA is setting up, all the kind of cross-pollination of the different disciplines, different racing series, kind of elevating everybody. So, I think it went really well. It's cool to see all the hard work and things that have been happening in the off season kind of come together at their first really their first event on the powerboating side with IHRA.
Yeah. Bet you there's some pregame jitters going on, but I mean, literally, we were having our meeting with MCON, and then we went and had Mexican afterwards, and we're sitting there at the table, you know, having Mexican watching the boat races right on Tyler's phone. So
That's
pretty cool.
Yeah. And so I think the live stream for St. Pete will be really good too. I mean, especially for the PWC guys, because they'll be able to benefit from the production team that's covering the offshore races too. So I think it'll be a cool show. It'll be action throughout the entire day from, as soon as they let us out on the water until we're done. Cause
I remember it starting very early in St. Pete. Like there's motos going right off the bat in the morning. You're like, what's going on out there? And they're like, oh, skis are racing already. You're like, geez, but they had a lot of heat races to make it to the final, which is awesome.
And what we're incorporating, which is different than aquacross in the past, is the closed course, like the stand-ups. Mm-hmm. And they'll be running right alongside the pier. So for the fans, it's going to be really cool. I mean, it's almost like the pier was built for something like that. You're just basically sitting over the course. And there'll be a few of those races kind of mixed in between the boat races, when the helicopters got to refuel and stuff like that. So there really won't be any downtime for people out there.
Well, that's what people want, though. As soon as nothing's going on, everybody starts meandering back away from the race course, and that's the last thing that you want. Yeah.
So we're about a month away from the first event. It'll be the first IHRA Pro Watercraft event as well, paired with the first offshore race. Thomas, you probably know better than anybody. What's the schedule?
So we're starting on Friday with just rules of the road testing for the offshore guys. And then we're actually going to have some personal watercraft racing on Friday, some of the amateur classes and stuff like that. Just because the schedule is so tight on Saturday and Sunday, we don't want to run out of time. So we're going to fit in a little bit of racing on Friday. Then we're going to do a pit party Friday night in the pits. So I'll have some music, food trucks, Monster will be out there with their activation. So that'll be cool just to get the city involved and everybody in town. Come and meet the drivers, take pictures of the boats, all that kind of stuff. And then Saturday and Sunday, it's just wide open from, I can't remember when we got permission to start, but I think it's around 9 a.m. until 5:30 p.m. It's just, wide open all day. All the racing in.
I hope the weather permits.
Yeah. We should be pretty safe. In March, a lot better than the September date.
Because it's just like you'll sit there and watch. You're like, here comes that late afternoon storm blowing in and lightning, and there's been so many times in St. Pete to where you're like, oh shit, here it comes. You can just see it building, and then
I mean, twice in the last few years that event's been affected by a hurricane, if not canceled completely. So that was one of our priorities to get it out of hurricane season.
Yeah. And for people that haven't ever been to St. Pete, you should see this pier he's talking about. It's not like a pier. It's like a small city at the end of the pier. It's huge. I mean, it's like, I don't know how many stories, but I've had people tell me, that was the coolest thing to sit up on the top. I guess there's like bleacher seating or some sort of stadium seating on the top, looking out at the course. And so different view than I get, but
nothing beats your view.
I mean, I see the photos from the course, the finish line there, you guys coming around, and when the pier's just packed with people, it's always a good shot. And then
you think we can get El Bandito to do his
maybe
I'll ask
a repeat performance from last time.
I mean, it's gonna be one more revolution. A hard one to top. He's got to learn to bury that one tab and lift the other one up and yank the wheel just right.
Take another shot of El Bandito tequila.
If anybody can do it, Steve Miklos. So, I'm going to tell him, I'm like, you got to see if you can one more rotation. Look like it. Get it wrapped like a football when you do it this time, too.
Be a spiral.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
So, anyway, all joking aside, I'm excited excited to have Thomas there, and hope that all the transition goes smoothly, and that we have a bunch of fans watching on live stream, and that everybody's excited to go racing.
For sure.
We're all looking forward to it. Just, maybe you can stay out front. We'll see.
No pressure, huh? I've done some tricks there at the start finish line and the Monster Supercat one time in the MCon. We spun it around and backed it in, hydraulic the motors. We were in second place at the time. We weren't leading, but yeah, that was one of them fine moments of not doing the right thing. I shouldn't make fun of El Bandito. I need to go knock on wood. Next thing I know, I'll be doing a trick.
Yeah,
that's what we always. There's that. Craig always says it. Do a trick. Whether you're just standing there doing something, but yeah. I hope we do a trick and wave a checker flag. How about that one?
There it is. That's the trick.
Yeah, that's the trick.
Maybe a backflip into the bay.
Yeah. I've done it on a previous Boats and Bros during jet skiing. I did. We were in Havasu and we were at the London Bridge. It was dark and I was drunk, and Ray got his phone out, and the freestyle event was going on. I was like, they want to do tricks, I'll do tricks, and I did a backflip off of Tubby's pontoon boat.
It was pretty impressive. You had a nice rotation and nice entry into the water.
Standing on like a bar that's about an inch in diameter. Good thing it held my fat ass. It'd have been embarrassing.
Go.
In light of the fact that we're watching this freestyle jet ski shit, the Boats and Bros podcast wants to watch Myrick do some freestyle shit.
Double, triple
Oh, it's
tut.
nothing triple or double.
Double, triple tut.
You got this, Diablo.
Or pretty much anything his physique can do.
El Diablo.
Hey,
Oh, Diablo.
don't mess up your hair.
Feel like that?
It did.
My hair?
Yeah, that was good stuff.
You did pretty good.
Like,
Break it off.
now I get why you're a monster athlete. It was pretty impressive. You got your whole body over.
Yeah, it's just, it was like the Winter Olympics going on, or it's like some trick. Do a trick, basically.
Right.
Them freestyle bikes, though, man. I was talking to Cooper Caldwell, and he's like, "Yeah, I want one of those, but they're like $50,000 or $60,000." I'm like, "What?"
Wow.
And he's like, "Oh yeah, they got so much power, and it's like an all carbon fiber body, and it's literally like they can just sit there and just keep doing backflips with obviously the right rider on them, but they just have that much power to sit there and do that."
That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, we might have some of those guys come out to some of the events this year.
Those are fun to watch.
Yeah, at least, it'd be like an intermission for even between the jet ski kind of thing. I mean, they say, though, that to run those things, that the engines are so like juiced up that it's pretty expensive to even run them. This is all Cooper telling me about it. Like, because he hung when we were out in Havasu one time, we went boating that day, and he was telling us about them.
Yep.
But I forget how many horsepower. Something like Dustin was talking about the horsepower to weight ratio of some of his skis and the what do they call it? Short course, maybe.
Like this ski GP class.
Yeah, to where it's like, I don't know, might weigh 400 pounds and have 450 horsepower or something like that.
Just ripping.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Compared to a 800-pound ski with 300, it's just crazy.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Well, Thomas, this has been fun. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been another episode of the Boats and Bros podcast, brought to you by Monster Energy. Thomas, thanks for joining us. Myrick, as always, bro, good luck. And please remember to like, follow, share, and subscribe. Thank you, Thomas. Congratulations on one hell of a moto career, and sky's the limit on what's coming up.
And being a dad and a husband,
a girl dad, husband,
A girl dad.
Yeah,
Important stuff.
yeah, exactly
Important
right.
stuff. That's right. I had one just walk through here.
Saw that.
Proud dad.
Awesome. Yeah,
No, it was a lot of fun.
awesome.
See you guys soon.
Thanks, Thomas.
See you.
This podcast is powered by Speedboat Magazine. Subscribe now at speedboat.com for 9 power-packed current issues a year direct to your mailbox.